Hi all. In the following lessons, now that they're all complete, I keep talking about the importance, the necessity to love properly. And so I thought at this point it would be nice to do uh, an image and explain it that would basically be Welcome to Paradise, the love lesson. This is the love lesson. What is love? And of course, we know Jesus himself gave us a perfect definition of love when he said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. To love your neighbor as you love yourself, okay? And so the question is how do we know if we're properly applying this principle or not, okay? Well, anyway, I've come up with a little test that a person can use to check their love and to see if it's making how the quality of it, the quality of one's love. We assume that everyone watching wants to be the best person they can be. Okay, that is our intent. If we want to be good, everything that we want to do is the best we can be. And so that means that we want it to be in harmony with love. So we want to make sure that if there's a lesson out there to help us to be a better, more loving person, let's do it. And if we get it right, I assure you the most loving people in the world are in paradise right now, today. I don't know if you noticed exactly what I did up here. It's basically I equated something. I equated love your neighbor as you love yourself with heads I win, tails you lose. Okay? Heads I win, tails you lose. When this is approximately equal, then things are in harmony with love. Now, when you first look at it, it looks like, hey, look, this don't look very fair. Heads I win, tails you lose. But in reality, that's what life is. Life is a heads I win, tails you lose situation. I mean, think about it. If you say two different families want to buy a particular house, okay? So they both put in bids for the house, okay? And then the owner of the house will decide, after reviewing the bids, which one he chooses to accept. It may be the one for the higher money, okay? Oh, this one says he's going to pay, $1,000. The other one says all he'll pay is $900. But the man that owns the house looks at the man that only can pay $900 and his 9 children and pregnant wife, and he says, I'm going to give it to them, even though I could make more money with this other person, where this is just a man by himself or with his wife or very small family. So relatively speaking, he says, yeah, it's going to cost me a little money, but I'm going to feel better about it if I give it to the man that has the most need for it. So heads I win, because I'm selling the house I want to sell, and tails you lose in that, I'm losing my house, but somebody's getting it, and it's going to be good for them. I tried to make the best choice for them. In other words, you love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you love yourself, you're going to do your best so that when you sell that house, if that's the illustration we're going to stick with, you might not get the most money, but you're going to know you did the best thing, okay? So you love your neighbor as you love yourself. Which neighbor was in the most need, okay? Yeah, you lost a little, but your neighbor won more. And in the long run, when you look at it, these two become approximately equal. The losers and the winners in the long run win, okay? Because it's like we're each other pulling each other up by our bootstraps, making each other better, more. And that's what this is, the intent to this is. So how can I make this true too? How can I make it to where every decision in my life, knowing that there's going to be winners and losers all the time, but I make it to where this principle applies, makes it approximately equal? Because it can't necessarily be perfectly equal every time, but in the long run, it's obvious that, I win, you lose is something you can be proud of. Think of it like this. Think of yourself as like a manufacturing plant on the side of a river, okay? And you proclaim that you're the most environmentally friendly plant in the world, okay? Well, if you look at the quality of the water upstream, the quality of the water at the plant, and the quality of the water downstream, and there's no other plants on that river, there's only one company that's pulling water from and putting water back into that river. When you look downstreams, what are you getting? Okay, what does it look like? What is the difference? If there's no difference, then the plant can continue to say that with confidence that they're not affecting anything bad. But if downstream people are looking at the water and say, hey, look, and we notice that there's a change that occurs at this plant, and then downstream, this is the effects. Well, that's symptoms, okay? That's symptoms that something, it has to be investigated and cleared up. And so what I'm trying to say is when you look into the actual, don't look exactly what the person is saying, but look downstream or in the past and all the different possible ways, and see if this is the way they lived their life, to where there's no damaged people back there. There's no rubble of suicides and failed marriages and all sorts of other things, or just people miserable trying to survive because that's what they were told, that that's the best thing to do, because one day Jesus is going to come and fix everything, and then after whatever. But anyway, but this is the thing, this is really what love is, not putting off our lives, but making decisions in our lives, learning how to be able to apply this principle all the time. So how can I make this true too? Okay, that's the question. I wrote this here. It says, this is another name for this image. It says, how to love your neighbor as yourself in one easy lesson. So hopefully that's what we actually accomplish by the time we're done with this, okay? So how is it possible to do this effectively? Okay, what are some primary things we need to think about? It says, to be a child of God. First of all, we have to accept that we are a child of God. We have to accept that we are a child of the world around us. We're supposed to be here just like the furniture around you or wherever you're at. You're a part of the physical world like everything else. And you're listening to this and watching this and learning this is part of where we're heading, the maturing of the spirit, the soul of mankind, the collective spirit, and that's done by healing the individual spirits, and you're one of those individual spirits. So Rex has been directed to put these videos together in such a way that will help a person to soften their previous viewpoints about things and to help them to reevaluate, am I really applying the golden rule this way, or am I doing it some other way? Am I doing it in a way to where in the long run it's good for everybody, not just me? And if everybody else, gets, empty plates, that's their problem. No, that's not love. That's not approximately equal. Anyway, so to be a child of God then is to recognize that, well, if you're a child of God and everybody else is a child of God, we need to play right, because we're each important to the overall purpose of the one that's here. But that doesn't mean that we have to cooperate, but down the road, we're going to have to reap what we sow. And so what I'm trying to say is it's good to learn what I'm saying so that when you get to this part, you're going to be happy with what you actually get. So to be a child of God, then, is you have to accept it. If I say I'm a child of God, you love yourself, then you have to love your neighbor. Everybody else is a child of God too. So you can't be hating your neighbor or saying they're bad because they're different from you, whether in belief or some appearance or whatever, because that's not approximately equal. So yeah, I want all the white people to be happy and loved and so forth and so on. That's myself. But my neighbor is the black people. Well, approximately equal is that the black people need to be able to do this too, back to me. Because if the black people are doing this toward me and then the white people are doing it back toward them, who cares what color you are? The point is people have preferences, and if certain people want to group together and have a, to where to the point where they actually become a race, that's grand, if they're all happy and showing this principle. The difference on the outside isn't the issue. The difference on the inside is the problem. That's the challenge. Okay. And that's what we're talking about. On the inside, we each need to recognize we're really this. So if you're a spiritual person, you need to recognize this. If you're a non-spiritual person, well, by the way, let me back up a little bit. I'm gonna do a little sidebar, and this is it. It has been for some time that it is known that God is optional. People talk about atheists that don't believe in God. But in reality, if a person has free will, that's an option. In other words, when this principle was put into play by the divine mind, the divine mind knew that some children would want to play right and some children wouldn't. And some children would like to be close to him and some wouldn't. Some wouldn't want to be close to him to the point where they would deny him completely. And that's okay too. God doesn't need his children to love him in order for him to be complete. And the child doesn't need to love God for it to be complete, because the child is God's child. So if loving God was a requirement, then, where's the free will? And that's been proven. There's a person by the name of Alan Watts that's done a lot of, back in the 70s and the 60s and 70s, I think was his heyday when he did a lot of videos and so forth. And he talked about that. And but does that mean that we don't have to be a good person? Of course not, because this rule applies all the time. You reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. And so if you don't want to believe in God, that's fine. But you better be a good person. You better make sure you live by this rule right here, because if you don't, in the long run, it's not going to turn out for you. It's not going to turn out for you, not because you didn't believe in God. It's because you didn't apply this rule right here, was love your neighbor as you love yourself. So when Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself, and the Bible says that God is love, okay, and this is the definition of love. So basically, God has set up this rule right here, This is how love works. You reap what you sow. So if you sow love for yourself, to where then what you're doing is also you're sowing love for your neighbor, and your neighbor is going to be in good shape. You're going to be in good shape. Everything's going to work out. We're going to have a nice crop of goodness and love. So to be a child of God is to have free will. So once you're a child of God and you start using your free will properly, in a mature way, then things go well, because you have the power to create. You're with the power to create. And you've been doing that ever since you're a kid. When you was crying as a baby because your diaper needed to be changed, you were exercising your free will, and the noise was a power that you used to attract your parents or your caretaker to come and see what the matter was, and the creation they saw the matter and changed the diaper or gave you a bottle or whatever it was you were in need of that they recognized at the time. They might even get it wrong, and you'll accept that too. But you did the creating in that you demanded something to come forth by your crying, making the sound. Isn't that how things, according to the Bible, things in the beginning was the word, the sound, and the word became, however the scripture reads exactly. But the point I'm getting at is the power of a word, okay? So we have free will, and depending on how we exercise that free will, we become that. And we have to recognize that this works even if we want even to do bad things or to create bad things. And that's the issue that we're having on mankind right now, is mankind don't understand the importance of the consistency of and realizing that every thought makes a difference. And if you're not careful, you can create even bad things. And we don't want to do that. Now, in reality, what I just went through and all is sort of like an analysis of children growing up. I mean, a child, an innocent little infant child, has free will, cries, and so forth and so on. And as he does that, he begins to understand his world. You know, he's told that he's a child of God, and but most of the time they're told also that they got a flaw in themselves. And so what happens is they never really learn to use their power correctly. In fact, they actually start sabotaging themselves, thinking that there's flaws in them because that's what they've been told. And so eventually what happens, you begin to create, among the good things you create, you also create some bad things, so you get a mixed life. And that child grows up in this mixed world with a mixed life because it never really came to understand how to apply love properly, make sure that everything in one's life is balanced with others. And a person gets derailed and they never reach they never are welcome into paradise because they're stuck, even creating for themselves bad things. And I don't want this video to go much longer, so let me just get to the point. One of these bad things is thinking there's a devil, and it's a real bad one. I've done all these videos. They've all been inspired, and the ones on this particular channel of Contemplating with the Master isn't all of them. I have some others. I have another channel I call Devil Talks, and I think another one called Power Talks, and another one of Mastery Talks, Self-Mastery Talks. And all of these together, are a body of work whose purpose is to get people to recognize that God, who lives by this principle, love your neighbor as you love yourself, would never create a devil. And that the world that we live in that appears to have a I win, you lose, a rigged system isn't rigged at all if we play by the rules. It only becomes rigged or appears to be rigged when we don't recognize what this is. And what happens is when we don't recognize how this works properly, that's when we start thinking up things like there's a devil in the works. That's, that a devil is needed to make sense of why the world is the way it is today. But in reality, if you just realize the world is full of children of God that have the power to create, and in that power to create, because they're immature children, create even bad things, and mankind is having to live through all the bad things that have been created in their, becoming who they are today. And that's what we're doing today. We're doing our best to help everybody to understand love in a way that's, in a deeper way that's never been understood before. And by accomplishing that, we'll be able to start transmuting all of this bad, inconsistent thinking that's creating even bad things to where this even bad things becomes a minimal. And the children, for the most part, are being led by adults that see to it that, we always are following to a good pasture, so to speak, being directed in a healthy mental direction so that the children will grow up to reap what they sow, which means the world that we live in will be a paradise because the children, when they cry, are demanding paradise because they've been taught to expect paradise. And this love lesson proves that you reap what you sow. And so if we teach all the children to expect paradise, we teach all the children that they're perfect, that if they want to be the best they can be, they can. In any field, we just have to inspire them that way. Well, hopefully this love lesson has been informative enough to be worth it. Again, I've got a lot of videos here. All of their purpose is to destroy this myth of the devil, and I use some organizations. I mentioned different that actually utilize that. And by doing that, we can see how this is real. It's in this world today, even though we don't realize it. This negative thinking that prohibits us from from entering paradise, because negative thinking creates negative things. So in the spirit of love, looking forward to perfect man, to help mankind to perfect their thinking powers, their creative powers, so that we can look forward to nothing but peace and security into the future. Thank you very much, and please take the time to look at other videos and meditate so as to be inspired to understand love to the best possible degree in your case.